I'm tired of it. The information overload, dividend investing, ETFs, saving money, crypto, bear markets, bull markets, debt consolidation, what stocks to buy now, who to copy, who to follow, who to do, it's just too much. It's crazy. There is no concise financial strategy when you're consuming all these random bits of advice in isolation without any context. People telling you to quit your job, be like him, be like her. Enough! The question you need to be asking yourself is, how does all of this advice fit into the bigger picture? Does this sound like you? You're interested in personal finance. You would like to achieve financial freedom while you're still young. So you consume content about smart money tactics and how to solve the money problem. And you do this because you don't have a financial education. So you want to learn from others that do, so that you can improve your financial literacy. So you learn a little bit here about budgeting and you learn a little bit there about investing, but it's all scattered. And the problem with that is you just don't know where to start and how to apply all of this information that you're learning. How do you get it to fit specifically to you and to your personal circumstances? That's what today's video is all about. A simple place to start your journey into financial freedom and how to put all these different things that you've learned into context. My name is Matthew, and my channel is all about growing your career, income, and investments for sustainable success. So if that sounds like something you'd like to achieve, then please subscribe to the channel. Now I have a question for you. When your paycheck comes, who is at the top of the list for payment? Is it your landlord? Is it your mobile phone provider? Is it the bank, which you owe a loan to? Is it a Amazon account? Is it a clothing store account? What is on the top of the list? I want to tell you a secret. The answer to that question should be you. It needs to be you. You belong on the top of the list. Pay yourself first. This concept comes from a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, written by Robert Kiyosaki. And it's a concept that I've tried to live my life by. It's something that my dad always taught me and always swore by. And it's a paradigm shift in your mind. The problem with savings is it's right at the bottom of the list. So you pay everybody, and then if there's something left over, you might save it. Or there might be a special on Amazon, or there might be a Black Friday deal, or there might be a 2-for-1 deal, or there might be some big opportunity to travel and go on holiday. There's always a reason to put yourself last. So why pay yourself first? I think you should pay yourself first to show yourself appreciation for working hard. So you say, thank you for working hard and earning this paycheck. Here is a little bit for you. So looking after future you today. And this is also where the simplicity comes from. All that you need to do to build long-term prosperity and financial wealth is to pay yourself a percentage of your salary every single month for the rest of your life. Put it into an annuity and think of that annuity as future you. Why is you of today somebody that you love and appreciate and look after more than your future self? That's the question you need to be asking yourself. That's the type of thinking you need to take into your financial planning. If you follow this method, you will achieve financial freedom. Let me show you. So here we've jumped into my computer. I want to show you how to put pay yourself first into action. So we're going to use hypothetical dollars. So this person earns 10,000 hypothetical dollars after tax per month. And I suggest pay yourself first 15% of that every month. The 8,500 that's left over is for everything else. Now, the assumptions that we're going to use for this analogy is that you're 30 years old and you're going to start with nothing. We're going to invest the amount we pay ourselves every month in an annuity in the form of like an index fund. Like the S&P 500 for the last million years has done about 7%. So we're going to put it into a relatively low risk fund with a very, very solid track record for returns. And that's where the 7% here comes from, which we're going to constantly reinvest. And then we're going to keep the amount that you invest fixed at 15% even as your income grows. So this is where this differs to advice where you hear save $100 a week. As your income grows, so the amount you invest should grow with it, and therefore fixing the percentage is what I suggest we do. I'm going to assume that my wages grow at 3% annually, with the exception of every 5 years, we're either going to change jobs or we're going to get some kind of promotion, okay? And with that change of jobs or promotion will come an increase of 10%. And then the last thing we're going to have to think about is, what do we do when our earnings start to grow more than what our costs do somewhere along the line? So just put that in the back of your head for a little bit later on in the video. All right, so here we jump onto what is quite a busy spreadsheet. It's a lot of numbers, but I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. Just bear with me. It's pretty straightforward at the end of the day. Okay. So here we see the 7% investment return that I mentioned. Here we see the 15% of the 10,000, so starting with 1,500 example dollars per month. We start in year 1, and here we start to build it. So we put it in each and every month, and it grows. And you can see, so it runs through to this column here, which is called the principal. And what the principal is the dollar value that you've put in. The investment income is what you've managed to grow or what you've managed to return in an investment. And those two combined is this number here, which is your cumulative sum. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run through this for a couple of years. And you can see that after 5 years, you've put in 96,000 example dollars, and you've only made $18,000. So this thing is not sexy. This thing's not something that's going to yield you fantastic returns overnight. This is something that grows gradually. But let's progress for another 5 years. So at year 10, our 15% per month is now worth 302,000 example dollars. We've put most of it in though ourselves, 216,000, and 85,000 in is investment income. Let's jump forward another 5 years. Okay. So now we've put in 365, our income is 240. Our overall value of our 15% is now 606,000 example dollars. Alrighty, now we get into year 20. Now we can see for very, very, very close, our investment income has caught up to our principal, i.e. we've just about doubled our money. Another 5 years on, you've got 771 that you've put in, and it's returned you $1 million. So your total investment is now worth nearly 1.8 million example dollars. And we carry on to year 30. You can see it's grown to 2.8 million, and it's nearly twice as much investment income as your initial principal amount. And then when you get to year 35, you can see that paying yourself first is worth $4.4 million. I think this graphical representation of how it is a slow exponential growth is a very, very good way of understanding the compounding effect of investments over the long term. If we ran this analogy for an additional 10 years, this line would literally just go straight up like this. So that is why the advice comes through, start young, the younger the better, as soon as you can, because you give yourself the benefit of time to build this snowball up and to run this line for 40, 45, even 50 years. All right, but there's more to it than this. It's not just this straightforward. What I mentioned earlier is there is going to be a disproportionate growth between your costs and your income. So what we do here is we roll over to this column. Now, if you can remember our original setup, our income was 10,000 example dollars a month, and our costs were 8,500 example dollars a month. Now we're going to assume, just for simplicity's sake, that our costs are going to increase at, let's say, an inflation rate of 3%, and our income is going to increase in the way we said earlier, so 3% per year, except for the years where we get promoted or we change jobs. And you can see along the road, our surplus, which is this column here, which is simply this one subtracting this one, starts to grow quite drastically because our costs are not growing nearly as quickly as our income is. So what that means is that the amount that we're investing, i.e. the 15%, is actually quite a bit less than our surplus. I think this income versus costs graph beautifully illustrates that over time, the gap between our income and our costs grows and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And why is this important? Because we need to figure out, what do we do with the difference? And that's what this column Z is called. This is additional capacity. This is the gap between our income and our costs and the 15%. Or put another way, the amount over and above 15% we can now do something else with. And you can see in this particular example, this comes into being in year number 5. Okay, so 5 years of following this strategy, and we've now created additional capacity, means to invest beyond the 15%. This doesn't work if we don't start paying ourselves first, but this thing really starts to get some traction because we did. So what this means is every month I've now got an extra $650 example dollars in year 5, $670 in year 6, $690 in 7, and so on and so on. And this is where, and this is the context point that I spoke to you about earlier. Why is this important? Because this is where the other investment advice that you've been looking at, like buying stocks, investing in real estate, etc., looking at ventures and other businesses, etc., becomes relevant. Because now you have the capacity to invest in individual stocks. You have the capacity to look at getting into real estate. You have the capacity to explore cryptocurrency. You have the capacity to explore any other investment avenue that you would like. I recommend staying diversified, and obviously you just cap it to this additional capacity that you've got here per year. Now the question you would ask me is, why would I do that? I'm growing quite nicely, things are going well. I'm gonna have $5 million when in 35 years time. Why would I do that? The simple answer to that question is, the minute you start going into what I would call active investing, you have the opportunity to influence this variable, this investment return. So investments like buying individual stocks, investments like getting into cryptocurrency, those are generally speaking a little bit of a higher risk investment, and with higher risk comes higher return. So we start to influence our higher risk investments when we create additional capacity through paying ourselves first. As this additional capacity starts to grow, you can look at then doing things like buying a house or investing in an investment property. And when you get to a point where you're looking at about 28 to 30% of your income is being matched by your additional capacity, you can here pretty much invest in anything you like, as long as you diversify. So what does that mean? That means for 5 years, you need to buckle in and pay yourself first. Then for 5 years, from year 6 onwards, you can start to invest in individual stocks and start to build yourself a little portfolio. Then from year 10 onwards, you can start to dabble in real estate and other serious investments. And from year 15 onwards, you pretty much have a free-for-all to invest in whatever you like. That is the power of paying yourself first. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to show you what the graph looks like if we decide to keep half of our growth. I showed you earlier, so you're going to get an amount over and above 15% that your income is now growing by. We're going to keep half of that. We're going to upgrade our lifestyle. We're going to move in a nicer place. We want nice things, and we're going to invest the other half. And I'm going to assume that we're going to invest the other half in something pretty safe. We don't necessarily want to become an active investor. Just to show you the power of reinvesting your growth as your income grows over time and your costs keep track with inflation. So all the same variables, just a new graph. So I've simply assumed that the amount over half of the amount over 15%, we're also going to invest and receive a 7% return. So if you recall, graph number 1 was about 4.7 million. Here's graph number 2, 6.2 million. So that has also got a massive impact over the long term. Now let's assume that you're really keen on building your financial future and you want to reinvest 100% of your growth, right? So any excess surplus capital that you have, you're quite happy with the lifestyle you've started at, you're keeping that lifestyle pegged at inflation, and you want to invest all of your excess capital, all of your surplus that you're making, then that is what your graph would look like. So there you can see you're moving to close to the $8.19 million mark. Okay. Now you've heard people talk about passive income, secondary income. We have to fit this within the context of the scenario as well. So that's what we've done over here. All right. So in year one, we started with a very, very small side income venture, and we're making $100 a month. Okay. In year two, we've managed to increase that to $250 a month. And in year three, we've increased it to $500 a month, and so on. And here you can see the annualized amount. We're going to assume that we invest all of our side income money. All right. So what that means is you'll be able to start buying shares in year 4 instead of year 5. So it doesn't make a huge difference in the beginning. So if you recall our initial graph that we showed, we could start buying shares in year 5. We could start dabbling in property in year 10, and we could do whatever we wanted from year 15 onwards. Okay. Now, because we've got a side income, we can do year 4 instead of year 5 for shares, year 6 instead of year 10 for properties, and year 8 instead of year 20 for whatever you like. So this just illustrates the passive income or side income or additional income will rapidly accelerate your growth trajectory. And we can see here by our graphical representation where the passive income takes us to. It takes us to about 12.6 million versus, actually I've got all the graphs summarized here. So here you can see investing only 15% and nothing else takes you to about 4.5. Investing 15% plus half of what you grow by over time takes you to just under 7 million. Investing 100% of your growth takes you to nearly 9 million. And investing all of your growth and of your passive income pushes you to nearly 14 million. That is the power of paying yourself first and having a financial strategy and some savvy in terms of your investments. Now I hear people talking about retiring early, and I hear people talking about the FIRE movement. I live here on planet Earth, and there's a lot of things that I think the FIRE movement doesn't take into account, like changing of lifestyle, having a family, getting married, settling down. If you want to live in a box and retire at 30, then good on you, but you're not going to be able to do much, and you're probably going to run out of money. For those that are realistic and live here on planet Earth, I made column AC to try and show you if you are ambitious about retiring young or younger, in other words, not having to work until you're 67, this is a good analysis to show you theoretically or realistically when you could start to retire based on your paying yourself first in your investment strategy. So column K represents 4% of your accumulated investments plus your side income minus your costs. So when this number becomes 0, it means you can afford to retire because your passive income plus your 4% of your accumulated investment portfolio is bigger than or equal to your cost base. So you can see here, even with this brilliant investment strategy where I'm putting 15% away plus all my passive income plus my growth, and I'm returning 7%, I'm only able to land on this magic number in year, what year is that? 23. So if I started at 23, then it's 46. If I started at 30, then it's 53. This is realistic, guys. This is where you can retire or you can have absolute financial freedom at the standard of living that you would like to have. Now, is that the Holy Grail? No, I don't think so. In my opinion, as this number gets lower, so your options become more flexible because your income requirement is going down year by year. Therefore, you can pursue other jobs that perhaps are more flexible but pay a bit less. Okay, that's the kind of thinking you need to go if you are looking at potentially wanting to retire early or have more flexibility in your career so that you can pursue travel and other dreams and endeavors that you might have. Now you might be thinking, Matthew, you know what, this sounds great, but you're also just producing another theoretical, abstract example. I still don't know where to start, okay? And that's a fair point. I think the place to start is you got to block out the noise. There is no quick fix. Most people nowadays are riddled with debt, are riddled with student loan debt, are battling to pay off their mortgages. Unemployment rates are at an all-time high. You know, for people to be talking about thriving financially in 2020, when things are so hard in 2020, doesn't actually compute logically. And yet there's so much noise around how to retire young, how to do this, how to do that, how to be rich. I think my first piece of advice is just to block the noise out and realize that there is no quick fix. Stop worrying about how to retire in your 30s. It's rubbish. And I've met nobody in my life who's happily retired. They're bored. They're looking for things to do with their lives. There's a lot of rubbish dreams that YouTubers will fill your minds with. You need to block that out. You need to come down here to reality and face up to what you can do right now based on the decisions you've made that have led you up to this point today. You know, a lot of these videos that are made assume you're 20 years old, you've got no debt, and you've just got this clean slate. I don't know about you, but I'm not 20. I don't have a clean slate. I've got responsibilities. I've got a wife. I've got a family. This is the departure point from which I've had to be building my financial strategy. I've got to move forward for me. I've got to apply good principles that work for me. Everybody's different. The second thing that I'm tired of is stop thinking or being convinced that working a 9 to 5 is such a bad thing. And you're this useless person because you work a 9 to 5 job. It's absolute rubbish. There is a very, very elite amount of people that can not work a 9 to 5 job. And a lot of them start businesses and end up working harder because they create a business that isn't scalable, and therefore they're more miserable than they would have been had they just stayed employed. It is a very, very challenging goal and endeavor, and it only suits an elite few people to create something that is scalable. You don't need to trade time for money. And you know what? That's okay, because you can succeed working a 9 to 5. I haven't found anybody else talking about financial literacy or financial education on YouTube saying that it's okay, you can succeed on a 9 to 5, but you can. We're not all entrepreneurs. We're not all salespeople. We're not all real estate executives. Everybody has got their own strengths and weaknesses, and some of us are suited for the corporate world. Some of us are suited to working a 9 to 5. Some of us like the security of sick leave and annual leave and job security and those sorts of things, and the many, many benefits, health insurance, etc., the many, many benefits that come with being employed. It is not this bad thing that everybody's trying to convince you that it is. And lastly, your choices are not, I either live my dreams today or I live them when I'm too old to live them. That is not the dichotomy of life. People say, no, you must get rich today, you must live it today, you're going to travel, you're going to do everything, or you're going to die before you get to live life. That is just rubbish. Gradually, as you grow your financial freedom and options, you will be able to pursue your dreams while maintaining a career. It just requires a little bit of patience, hard work, and tenacity. Like any other thing that's worth having, it shouldn't be easy, but it is attainable. I believe in the philosophy, patience equals options. Options equals change, and change equals freedom. And that is exactly what paying yourself first is all about. It transforms this equation for you as the years go by. All right, I'm going to calm down now. My rant is over. I think I've got through to, hopefully, I've got through to you. And now I can just give you a step-by-step where to start if you've convinced of the idea of paying yourself first. All right. So you need to assess where you are right now. I made a budget video. I'll link it in the description below, which basically just gives you the tools of trying to understand what your surplus is every month. Okay, so that's the first step. Understand your budget. The second thing is understand where you are in your career. I make career success videos. I'll link it the playlist below in the description box with all of my videos on how to grow in your career. And it's very important because this whole idea of paying yourself first assumes that over the long term, you're going to thrive and grow in your career. And there are things that you can do to make that happen. So where are you in terms of your budget? Do you understand what you're spending? Do you understand what you're making? Where are you in terms of your career? What track are you on there to grow? Are you on track for a promotion? Should you be considering changing careers? So that's step 2. That's obviously going to impact your income prospects, right? So would my my prospects of getting promoted impact my income? It should. What are my side income prospects? Have I looked into ways to make more money? There's a lot of different ideas around passive income. I'm not going to go into it in this specific video, but it would be a place that I would consider starting. Do I have a way of starting up some secondary income? You know, am I looking into affiliate marketing? Am I looking into print on demand? Am I looking into whatever that you're looking into to try and make additional income? This is the start, and you need to set out this trifecta: budget, career, income. And income being specifically additional income over and above what you're already receiving in your career. Those are the 3 start points. From there, I reckon you'll have a little bit of a reality check, and you're probably going to need to put yourself on an improvement plan. You're going to have to start probably making some concerted steps in doing better at work. You're going to have to probably make some spending cuts if you're not making the 15%. This could include prioritizing your debt, getting rid of your credit cards. Remember, our investment rate here is 7%. If your credit card is costing you 20%, it does not make sense to invest money at a 7% return if it's blocking you paying off your credit card that's costing you 20% sooner. So let's apply common sense and get rid of our expensive debt first. Maybe you need to upskill. Maybe that is the ticket for you to grow in your career. So that's something that you need to consider doing as well. As I said, look into secondary income and start looking at where you can cut costs. The reality is most of us probably don't have the 15%, and that is the place to start. Have a look here at this guy. He's from my budget example. His cost base is $9,669 a month. He's short, big time. He needs to be at 8,500, remember? He's over by $1,000. What's his problem? His debt. He's got to get rid of his debt first. Then he will have more than $1,500 a month. He'll actually have $2,000 to start investing and start putting onto the pay yourself first plan. So that's why it's important to also understand your budget and your surplus and to prioritize the pay down of your debt. As I mentioned, I made a video on that on my previous video. All right, so going back to where do I start? So once you put yourself on this improvement plan, then you need to create or employ your surplus. All right. So as I mentioned, servicing your short-term debt, climbing into your medium debt, this is the same as investment growth. Any debt that costs you more than 7%, get rid of it. And only after, because remember your investment comes at a tax rate as well, right? So after tax is probably going to be, let's call it 5.5%. So your debt is not tax deductible. So any debt that's costing you more than 6%, prioritize getting rid of that first. That is as good as paying yourself first. That is as good as an investment return. So see it like that and treat it accordingly. If you have debt, sell stuff. I mean, you've probably accumulated things that you don't use or you don't need. Garage sales, secondhand, whatever works. But it'd be a great way for you to get a lump sum of cash that you can just plow through and get rid of that credit card to build that surplus and start paying yourself first. And that's it. Once you've done that, you can implement pay yourself first. Guys, this isn't easy and it has to be at a high level. I can't go into a massive amount of detail, but the math is sound. The principle of an annuity building over a large period of years is sound. The principle of growing as you get deeper in your career and the gap between your income and your costs getting bigger and bigger and bigger is sound. Applying those to pay yourself first so that you can build financial wealth and freedom is very, very doable. I hope you got a lot of value from this video. If you did, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back next week for another video where I build on this and I'll start talking a little bit about some of these strategies we can implement around passive income and whether we should buy our property or rent it. Until then, I'll see you soon.